Hi everybody, welcome to Q&A with Coach Rebecca. I am Coach Rebecca Smith, a high performance coach specializing in helping athletes age 8 to 18 increase performance by maximizing enjoyment, confidence, self-trust. And I'm also the founder of the Perform Happy community, which is currently accepting new members. And this is good news because, as some of you guys know, I am expecting baby number 2 in July. And so that the online community, which is a way that I coach people one-on-one through courses and through the forums, it's going to be the only way that you get me personally after June. So hopefully I can, be able to carry on the good work I'm doing while managing a tiny little person who's going to need a lot of me. The good news also is that we've got 3 other fabulous coaches on the Complete Performance Coaching Squad. They are coaches, they are judges, they are elite athletes, Division I collegiate athletes, amazing humans, and also fabulous sports psychology experts. So if you still need one-on-one attention after I go and, head into the baby vortex, it will still be available to you. So our job as a team is to help you, whether you're a coach, a parent, or a child, or an adult athlete, maximize performance and enjoyment. So I got a question from one of the members of the community today, just asking for some case studies. Now, she's got a daughter who struggles from generalized anxiety disorder. Now, you guys probably know I am not a clinical psychologist. I've chosen to focus on the performance arena of psychology. I have a master's in sports psychology, but I'm not a licensed clinical psychologist. So as far as anxiety disorders, that is not my specialty. But what my specialty is helping athletes overcome sport anxiety and overcome fear, which actually translates to a lot of life skills. And you guys have heard me give a couple examples of, I've had driving anxiety that I've been like, oh yeah, I have tools for this. Driving on a cliff with a 100-foot drop off where I just tense up and I'm like, oh my gosh, my family's in the car. This is terrifying. And then I'm like, whoa. Take a breath. Do what's in my control. Slow down the car. Hold on tight. Focus in on the solution. Don't look off the cliff. Look at the road. I know how to help myself through those sorts of situations now. The dentist. Deep breaths. Be present. Look at the ceiling. Get myself grounded in reality. I've learned just through the process of working with so many kids on the same thing, I've learned personally how to get through those moments in life that used to be just too much. So something that I can tell you guys to give you hope for kids who are generally anxious, I think I probably fall into that category too, or fell into that category as a young person when, I was always super nervous to compete, really nervous to the point of blanking out on tests. Luckily, I had, a good amount of self-belief in my intelligence. My mom was like, you're the smartest thing ever. You're so smart. You're so smart. So I had kind of a good foundation of that. But otherwise, I was super anxious. So the tools that I've been able to teach these kids are for life. Yes, I talk through the lens of sport, but these are really for life. And honestly, that's my main goal is happy, healthy, successful kids. And not just successful athletes, kids who then turn into happy, healthy, successful adults who can handle scary situations or awful situations with grace and with dignity and able to walk through it with their head held high and get through some really tough stuff. So what I'm going to do is give you guys 3 different case studies of kids that I've worked with who have had kind of general anxiety stuff going on. And I'm going to change some details about them because every session I have one-on-one with an athlete is confidential, 100% confidential. So I'm going to kind of change details so that it's not really going to be totally anybody's story, but it'll give you a good idea. And my gymnast I'll tell you about is kind of a conglomerate of 4 different kids. But this will give you an example of, kind of some issues that each kid struggled with. I have a gymnast, I have a figure skater, and I have a swimmer because those are kind of my personal 3 top sports that I work with. Although I've worked with, tons and tons of sports, but those are kind of the top 3. So it's probably the top 3 types of athletes who are listening. I'll tell you kind of what their background was, what we did together to help them through it, and then kind of what the outcome was. So that for those of you who are feeling hopeless, oh my gosh, my kid is so nervous all the time, like school, with friends, social, like is it ever going to get easier for them? You know, or is there hope for my kid to get through this sport anxiety because they are just a generally anxious kid? So I want to give you guys some hope, because I know in my life, anytime that I feel hopeless, I need success stories. I just need to be like, tell me it's going to be okay. And don't just tell me it's going to be okay. Tell me you went through it and this is what it was like and it felt hopeless and then you got through it. And that's really one of the main reasons why the Perform Happy community has become as powerful as it has, is like I log into my little, Facebook group and everybody's there supporting each other. And like, one mom is like, yes, we've been through it and we got through it and it's awesome. And one mom's like, oh my gosh, I'm so mad. I don't think this is going to work. And they all just work together to reinforce what's working. And you guys, it's like so much more powerful than just like what I alone could do with an individual family when everybody bands together. So long intro, and here we go. I'm going to give you some case studies. So this first kid I'm going to call Chloe, not her real name. She is a gymnast and she was struggling with a couple of different kind of outside of sport anxiety issues. Like she had a major fear of throwing up, and then she also had some struggles with getting to school. So there were days where she could not get to school. She was so anxious. Her mom could not get her out of the house without hysterics to get to school. And mom was like, oh my gosh, what is happening in school that you can't get there? And then also, like anytime that she started to get nervous, her stomach, she'd feel nauseous. And then she had like this overwhelming fear of throwing up. Okay, so that's kind of like background. And meanwhile, this girl is a very capable gymnast, hardworking, really kind to her teammates, really, just a total joy to work with. And in the gym, she's awesome. And then she goes to compete and she gets so nervous that she actually has been injured in competition because she was so nervous she completely lost focus and then had a pretty serious fall on beam. Okay, so this is Chloe. So what we did was, this is kind of what I do with athletes who struggle with general anxiety, is the first thing I do, and you guys might like kind of think like, what? First thing I do is I go, okay, let's talk about the worst case. Worst case scenario is what? And I'm like, okay, what are they going to come up with here? Like kids are so creative. And usually they'll kind of go, well, worst case, I fall a bunch and I just really fail and I let people down and I disappoint people, but mostly I disappoint myself. That's what we kind of always boil it down to, is mostly I'm going to disappoint myself. Like my team knows how hard I work. My parents love me and they know that I melt down at competition and I don't know why. And everybody just wants me to do well. But so worst case, I disappoint my family, I let my coaches down, and I get really disappointed. And, or I get myself hurt at competition because I'm so stressed, which has happened already in this situation. So she's like, yeah, that's pretty much the worst case scenario. And then we look at it and go, okay, that was awful. It was awful. It was not something anybody ever wants to go through, actually becoming injured to the point where you need to stop and leave the competition and all out of nerves. So she went through that. She went to the doctor, like things got resolved. And then she, kind of had this moment with her parents where we were like, geez, we need to do something about it. And that's when they reached out to me. And that was it. That was the worst. That was the worst thing that could happen. And it happened. And she survived it, And sometimes that's like what we have to start with is you survived it, right? Worst case thing happened, and here you are to talk about it. And you made it through, and we're here, and you're okay, and today's Wednesday, and whatever. And so sometimes just to break it down and be like, everything in this moment that we're actually in right now, not the future that's so scary and we can freak out about, but in this moment, everything is okay. You are okay. Yes? And they can usually say, well, yes. And then we go into, okay, and if you fall 500 times at your next competition, what's the worst that would happen as far as like letting people down? Okay, parents might be upset. Mostly the kid is like, my parents put so much money into this sport. They're going to be upset if I don't do well. So I send them to their parents and say, like, well, let's talk about it. Okay. If I mess up, will you be disappointed in me? And they actually have an honest conversation. A lot of the time the kids realize my parents love me because I'm me and not because I do well at my sport. But they don't, like, they know that, but they don't know that until they actually have that conversation. So being able to actually chat about, Mom, I'm so scared of letting you down. And then Mom's like, oh, honey, even if you completely fail, I will never stop loving you. And I'm so proud of you. And don't even worry about that. Of course, we spend the money because we make a choice as a family to do that. Don't put so much on yourself. And typically these, kids who experience anxiety in a lot of areas of their life are very smart and very aware, like too smart and too aware of all of the working parts and like the money that's being spent and all that stuff. So just to be able to go, oh, hey, don't worry about that. No matter if you go worst case scenario, we still love you. So that's what we start with, is like, all right, so you get stressed. Let's talk about what the stress is about. This could happen, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. If these happen, how will you cope with it? And this is also skills you use for life. Okay, what could happen at school? What could happen? And then how will you deal with that? What will you do if that does happen? Because the scariest thing is feeling like you don't have the resources necessary to deal with a situation. And that's what stress is. It's the feeling that I don't have what it takes to get through this. I can't survive this. I'm not strong enough. But if you have a plan, then you're like, well, it's gonna suck. I'm not gonna like it. This would be bad. I would not be a fan of this happening, but this is what I would do if it did happen. If I get into a scary situation at school, I will excuse myself to the bathroom and I will pick up the phone and I will call my mother. If this happens, I will do this. If this happens, I will do this. You as long as you have a plan, for those of us, kind of like nervous type people, if I know I don't want this to happen, but if it does, this is how I'll deal with it. If I bomb the competition completely, my parents promised they would take me to ice cream anyway. So we're going to go to ice cream. No matter how I do, I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to go back to practice and work on the things I didn't do well. The end. Okay. Doesn't sound like the worst thing ever, right? Okay. So you have a plan. And then I also work with, I think all of these kids I've worked with on the sensation of the discomfort of being anxious. It is uncomfortable. And I've driven up to like really big talks that I'm giving for giant teams, big groups of people. And like everything, like my throat, it's always my throat and my chest kind of tense up really tight and are like, don't do it. Go home, turn the car around. And obviously I'm like, I'm gonna go and do the talk, but like it's just that natural fight or flight thing, that anxiety that comes up when it's like, oh, I want to do well. I really don't want to mess this up. And then I've learned like, it's fine. If I have that feeling, it's fine, because I'm always going to get back in the car and call my husband, and he's going to say, how'd it go? And I'm going to say it went awesome. And he's going to be like, no kidding. It went awesome. You don't say. Like, that's our running joke. Like, that I'm going to be nervous and he's going to be like, you're going to be amazing. And then I call him and I'm like, it was amazing. He's like, no, you don't say. Like, he has so much faith in me that, that's just what happens. So I can even just fast forward to that. Like, here I am with my heart pounding in my car. And then I can fast forward to calling him and him being like, how'd it go? And me being like, it was great. So that can help. But also getting used to the feeling of that, like, I don't like to feel that way. I'm like, raise your hand if you like to feel the feeling of anxiety, the like stomach nausea, clenching up your chest and your throat, heart pounding, feeling sweaty. Like, who likes to feel that way? I don't know if maybe you do. Maybe some of you guys are like, I love it. I mean, for some of you, you get excited to compete, and so it's part of that. And some people are like, yes, this is go time. But for most of us, we don't like that feeling. And for people who get real anxious, we're like, make it stop, make it stop, make it stop. And how do you make it stop? You get in your car and you drive away, or you don't even know. And you're like, I can't make it stop. This is so bad. Which then actually kind of turns into, and I don't want to use clinical terms, because I told you I'm not a psychologist, but into a panic attack, or what a lot of people call a panic attack. It's basically the sensation of anxiety that feels like it's going to take you over and you can't handle it. And all you want to do is make it stop, make it stop, make it stop. And it won't stop and it won't stop. And it feels awful. And it can make you throw up, which this girl was like terrified of throwing up. So what I teach is actually to make peace with that feeling. And that comes in handy in every possible situation. I was doing one of these episodes and my aunt was listening to it, and she had just experienced the death of her father. And she went through that experience of like feeling the feeling you don't want to feel. And she was able to let it kind of wash over her and then process out a little bit. And she was like, it's the best I'd felt in weeks because I actually just felt the feeling. So for those of you who are nervous, giving yourself permission to feel it, even if it's inconvenient, because there's never a convenient time to feel that way, but you just go in and feel. It's crazy. I can, like, just talking about it, I can feel it in my throat. You just let it be there. And you stop resisting. And a lot of anxiety is like the resistance to the anxiety. So when you learn to stop resisting it, you know, accept like what could go wrong. Okay. What does this feel like? Okay. You're not fighting anymore. And then I teach techniques. And for each of these kids, it's been different things that really help them. One girl my swimmer, what am I going to call her? Olivia. She used to have panic attacks in the pool while racing. And what we figured out for her was that she needed to have what I call positive distractions. She needed to have just something else to think about because she worked so hard in practice. She could fully lean on her training. She wanted to fully lean on her training, but she didn't know how and she wasn't that good at it. So I taught her how to lean on her training. And so she would just chat. That was her assignment, was at a meet, you chat with your friends, you think about your cat, you think about lasagna. Literally, these were two of the things that I had her think about because those were things that made her happy. And then she'd just get in and swim. And once she started doing that, she was like, I'm not nervous anymore. I just stopped thinking about the thing that makes me nervous because I know I worked hard enough to be able to trust myself. Like, it seems really simple, but you guys, it's that simple. It's a shift from I need to try very, very hard to I just need to train my butt off and then go do it and then see what happens. And she and I had also worked through okay, what do you need to do to prepare? Each of these athletes that I worked with had a pre-performance routine of something that they would do. They would get them in their ideal zone. Now, each of these athletes is different in what they needed, but they all had one has a song and some breathing, and one has a different thing that she does to get herself in the right energy zone. So for those of you guys who are in the community, there are 2 courses in there. The Perform Happy community it's a collection of courses plus live trainings plus access to me. 2 of them that are super helpful. One is the pre-performance mental strategy. So it actually takes you through coming up with your own routine. And then the other one, which is a little bit more advanced for those of you upper level athletes, is called Automatic Self-Trust. And this teaches you how to build the foundation of being able to actually just trust yourself and stop thinking. So those 2 I recommend for you members. And then let's see, what was my other, my figure skater. So with her, we did a pre-performance routine. We addressed a lot of the way she talked to herself. There were certain things she would say to herself, like, I'm tired, right before she'd go for a big jump. And I'm like, okay, do you think that that's setting you up for success? She's like, gosh, no, that doesn't make any sense. So she started thinking, instead of I'm tired before she'd go, she'd think about skate like so-and-so. She had somebody who she really looked up to, who she trained with, who was, a couple levels above her, who was just on. This girl could nail any jump. She was super confident. She loved to compete. And she's like, I'm going to skate like her. And so she put that hat on. And that's something I've done with a couple of these kids too, is figure out like, who's your confidence alter ego and how do you tap into that? And then that's the hat you can put on when you need it. So if I'm walking up to a presentation for 1,000 athletes, I can turn on Super Rebecca and be like, this version of me is not scared. This version of me loves the attention and the, whatever. So if you kind of figure out like, who's the best version of me? And yes, it is you. That's the secret. Like, we go through and I'm like, okay, the most confident you, tell me all about her. And then I'm like, okay, are you this? Well, yeah. Are you this? Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the best version of you is actually you. How convenient. And then they just learn how to kind of like embody that instead of the negative version. And so we do a lot of like knocking out negative self-talk, because that's what gets the worry machine going. And the worry machine is like basically the root of anxiety is the what if. What could go wrong? This whole like, I'm looking at the big picture and it looks horrible. And so then I'm like, okay, so let's just go in the moment. No more big picture. No more what if the whole everything goes horrible. Just do what's in front of you. So that's kind of like a big picture eye view of how I work with kids that have anxiety. I do a lot more technique stuff, but that gives you an idea. And so just to give you a quick rundown of who's doing what. One of these gymnasts is on the national team for a different country. One of these gymnasts has a college scholarship. These are kids that I'm like, have kind of conglomerated into one. One of these kids went from worst season ever to like really, really nailing it this season. One other one went from, being too scared to even go to school to now like school's no problem, gym's going great. Then I've got my figure skater who qualified to nationals. The year prior, she like fully crashed and burned so bad, poor thing. And then this past season, she qualified to nationals, and she's like one of these up and coming younger skaters, because she's now like super confident and positive. And then the other swimmer, just like, she basically was like, I guess our work is done, because I'm like, I don't need you, which is my ultimate goal when I work with kids one-on-one. Is that they don't need me, but they're like, oh, I get it. I get what I need to do to feel confident. Great, And then of course you can stay in the community and keep us posted and help other people and give the hope, or you go on your merry way and you go have a good life. So that's my hope. Hopefully I'm giving you guys some hope here. If you're feeling like I am too nervous, I will never get through this, there's so much hope. If you haven't joined us yet in the community, you can go to performhappy.com and check it out, see if it feels like a good fit for you. And I'll be back again next week answering questions. Thanks for joining me. Bye.